Ladies and gentlemen, MrCropper here. I hope that this article from the Objective Standard continues to be available. I am viewing a snapshot of it. It's no longer online, or it isn't temporarily, by Craig Biddle. Please, for the love of liberty, do not accept the claim that the so-called alt-right is part of the right, or that the right must atone for the evils of this allegedly new movement. The alt-right is not part of the right. It is part of the left, specifically the racist left, and it is not a new movement. It stands for regular, age-old white nationalism as advocated by progressives, Democrats, and National Socialists for more than a century. The neologism alt-right, short for alternative right, was coined by white nationalist Richard Spencer, who says, "Race is the foundation of identity, and America is a white country designed for ourselves and our posterity." Spencer advocates an ethno-state, a new society based on very different ideals than, say, the Declaration of Independence. He mocks abstract values such as capitalism and free markets and the Constitution, calls for white Americans to embrace racial identity, nationalism, and a sense of us, and says America belongs to white people, culturally, politically, socially, everything. And Spencer is not an aberration. His views are the norm in the alt-right. Another leading figure of this movement is Andrew Anglin, editor of the Daily Stormer, whose slogan is, "Preparing for the Race War." Anglin explains that the goal of the alt-right is to ethnically cleanse white nations of non-whites and establish an authoritarian government. What about Jews? How does the alt-right feel about them? Many on the alt-right believe that the Jews should be exterminated, Anglin explains. The end goal is ethnic cleansing by any means necessary. I could go on, but the foregoing is sufficient to indicate the basic views of the alt-right. Do these people sound like advocates of individual rights? Lovers of liberty? Stalwarts of equality before the law? Are their ideas even in the vicinity of such values? Exactly. Now I want to pause there for a second. So he's saying, Craig Biddle is saying, that individual rights, liberty, equality before the law, those are associated with the right, not with the left. Now, thank you, Craig Biddle. I agree. That is certainly the case. The right is a big tent today, and there are lots of people inside of it, including a lot of people from the left. But the essentials on the left are groupthink and collectivism, and the essentials on the right are individualism and freedom. That's certainly true. Far from advocating individualism, freedom, or capitalism, these creatures advocate collectivism, authoritarianism, and nationalism. Indeed, they advocate a form of National Socialism, Nazism, which is why their rallies and conferences are replete with swastikas and Nazi salutes. To claim or to accept these goons belong in the same political category as advocates of individual rights is to participate in a devastating package deal that obliterates crucial distinctions on which civilized society depends. As Ayn Rand cogently emphasized, concepts are not to be integrated in disregard of necessity. If we want to defend individual rights, freedom, and capitalism, then we need to differentiate these concepts from their opposites. One crucial means of doing so is a rationally defined political spectrum, a spectrum on which one extreme represents ideologies and social systems that respect and protect individual rights fully and consistently, and the rest of the spectrum represents ideologies and systems that deny or violate individual rights to some extent or another. As to the claim that we shouldn't use the term right to identify our position because white racists have included that word in a neologism for their neo-Nazi movement, think about what that implies. Are we going to let noxious punks set the terms of political discourse? If so, what will we do when they start calling themselves alt-capitalists or alt-objectivists or alt-Americans? There you are, ladies and gentlemen. Do we allow them to set our terms as far as the definition of selfishness goes, or capitalism? Then why do we allow leftist, racist collectivists to define themselves as being on the alt-right? That's insane. The way to categorize the alt-right is not to grant them the term right, but to point out that they have nothing to do with the right. The alt-right is not an alternative on the right. Rather, it is an alternative to the right, as in part of the left, the far left, the National Socialist left. Now that's interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Have you given any thought to why they call themselves the alt-right? They don't call themselves the far right or the real right. They call themselves the alt-right, the alternative to what's going on the right. So they go over there to the right and they find all this stuff going on and they say, well, we are an alternative to what's going on over here. Our alternative is collectivism, racism, and groupthink. Okay, that is the alt-right. Advocates of individualism and capitalism should not even use the term alt-right except to explain that it is a package deal intended to blur crucial distinctions for the purpose of advancing racism. When people claim to be on the right but advocate ideas on the left, we shouldn't capitulate to the contradiction. We should identify it. Now, what can we say to MrCropper now? Those of you who said, oh, the alt-right this and the alt-right that. The alt-right, huh? It is a term used by leftist, fascist, racist collectivists. That is what the term alt-right is. A term used by racist, fascist collectivists. All right. Thank you, Craig Biddle. Thank you, The Objective Standard. I'll see if I can leave a link to this, but as I said, I was viewing a snapshot of it, and the actual article is now offline. Thank you for viewing. Please patronize me if you support what I do. MrCropper out.